All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Building Community Capacity to Take on Net Zero project session this afternoon. We're going to have a bit of an introduction and context. People's Community Trust will speak, and then there'll be a bit of facility discussion at the end. Just to start off, a little intro to CARES in case you missed it in this morning's plenary. CARES is the Scottish Government's community and local energy scheme. And we have a goal that communities across Scotland are engaging, participating and benefiting in the transition to net zero. And our support is there to help communities involvement in shared ownership projects, in local energy systems, contributing to Scotland's 2 gigawatt by 2030 target, that's 2 gigawatts of community and locally owned energy by 2030, and maximising the impact from community benefits. Local Energy Scotland deliver CARES on behalf of the Scottish Government, and we provide a range of grant and loan funding and advice and support through our resources. Particular mention to our development officers in our team and our specialists. They're the really key members of staff that are there on the ground to support local communities, and they're there right the way from the very start of a project right the way to the very end. So if you do have a project in mind and you're not already in touch with CARES, go straight to your local development officer. You'll find their contact details on our website. I will stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Catherine for the rest of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laura. It's really nice to be here today. Thank you very much for having us. I recognise quite a few of the names in the room, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Mcwilliam, and I am a Development Officer with Development Trust Association Scotland, or DTAS as we're better known. We're the member organisation for the Development Trust movement in Scotland and currently have around 335 members from Unst in Shetland all the way down to Portpatrick in the southwest of Scotland. So a really good mix of organisations. The community development trusts are community owned and led organisations who are looking at tackling social, economic and environmental issues within defined geographical areas. And the projects that they look to deliver are wide-ranging and diverse in their scope. And you'll hear more about some of those projects from my colleague Alex Wilson, who I'm joined today from People's Community Trust. Alex has very kindly agreed to come and share a member perspective with you as well. So today's session, building community capacity to tackle net zero projects. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have a bit of a discussion. Some of what we're going to say might be a bit provocative. I hope so. I hope it is thought-provoking, and I'm really keen to hear what you guys think as well along the way. So, as many of you know, for the community sector, this area of work is not new. Community organisations across Scotland have a rich and diverse history of delivering projects that tackle climate change and can contribute to the net zero agenda. A lot of this work traditionally has been delivered via the Climate Challenge Fund, and whilst we've seen the successful delivery of many community-led projects, the vast majority of these projects have one pretty significant setback. As everyone here will know, CCF projects were time-limited specific activities that allowed community organisations to deliver projects aimed at reducing carbon emissions. That meant that every year when the fund opened, community organisations were applying for funds to continue and develop their existing projects or come up with new ones specifically focused on those primary outcomes. Each of these projects was extremely worthwhile in their own right, but our argument when it comes to building community capacity to deliver and take on net zero projects is that we cannot continue to think about climate change and net zero as isolated or siloed project areas. Instead, tackling climate change and working towards net zero should be embedded in everything that we do from the outset. Reducing our carbon emissions, or however you want to describe it, should not be the outcome from one specific project, but instead should sit front and centre to what we do as organisations to support our communities. When pulling together this session today, I was really conscious that one, it was the end of the day for many of you, and two, we didn't want to give you death by PowerPoint or death by presentation. But what we really want to do is highlight with examples. And I hope that the examples that we're going to share with you today will resonate when it comes to your own communities and organisations. So first up, we're going to mix up the format a wee bit and the content, and I've got a case study video that was created for the recent DTA Scotland annual conference, and that's going to tell you the story of Linlithgow Community Development Trust and their objective for Linlithgow to be a net zero town by 2043. So bear with me whilst I get my screen share set up. And the video lasts about 3.5 minutes. And hopefully you'll all be able to hear it okay, but if I could just get somebody to give me a thumbs up or a nod if you can.
Climate activity is so important to Linlithgow Community Development Trust because it's something that we know is important to the community. The Trust started exploring how if the Trust owned panels, that could be a source of generating some revenue to then put the revenue back into community projects, and that's how Linlithgow Solar was born.
Well, the buy-in's been great. The first community organisation that came forward was a rugby club, and they bought into the idea and the concept, and now we've done 2 phases on 3 different clubs, so that's been fantastic.
Well, in Linlithgow Rugby Club, we see ourselves very much as a community rugby club. So being involved with the Community Development Trust and helping them get going with the first pilot and then the follow-up work was really something that made a lot of sense to us and our members.
One Linlithgow is the business improvement district for our town, which represents all the business community. So there's about 300 businesses in the town that are covered. So the Linlithgow Development Trust and Linlithgow Solar in particular is a great one to work with, looking at the green energy solutions for businesses, which will help reduce their costs and also help to get the town to carbon net zero. Helping the businesses become greener and more efficient is really good because it'll save them money in the long run, but also will make the town a far better place for everyone in the community to come and spend time in.
In the beginning, having established the trust, they did a community consultation to find out what people in the town might think is a priority. And the cycle circuit, which is hoped for on the west side of town, came up as being a priority. It was about active travel. It was about health and well-being. It wasn't just about excellence, but it was about getting people participating in sport. We set out to do a number of community energy things.
What we have at the moment is we have a tool library with over 400 tools. We have a system called My Turn, so it's all computerized. People can book out tools. And that's been a great project, and it's continued even during lockdown. We provided people with things like sewing machines that they might have needed to make masks or all sorts of different items, gardening items when people were at home so much. So it's a fantastic initiative. And we also have our electric bikes. So we have 4 electric bikes, including a cargo bike, and again, they're rented out on a weekly basis to the community. What we really want to do is, as a community anchor, working with all the different organisations in the town to work together on climate action collectively.
So we made it to the World Finals of this year's virtual F1 in Schools project, and we started looking at reusable materials, sustainability. So we got into contact with the Trust and Neil and things like Linlithgow Solar. And they helped us set that up and look into things like solar power, which we were really interested in.
So really the Young Energy Enterprise provided me and at least 5 to 10 people the chance to gather experience and to contribute to something that really proved to be worthwhile.
Okay, so hopefully that gave you a really useful introduction.
With MailChimp, you can design beautiful marketing assets in no time at all. Thanks.
Apologies, that's what happens when you're using 2 screens. Hopefully that gave you a good overview and introduction to Linlithgow Community Development Trust. That video was one of 4 case study videos we created based on DTAS members. We've also got videos available on South Seeds, North West Mull Community Woodland Company and Calendar Community Development Trust, and all of them are focused around the climate activity that those organisations are engaged with. And they're available on our social media channels, and I'll put links in the chat box later on as well. Now, we know from experience and variety within our communities in Scotland that it's not often as easy as Linlithgow makes it look. For many communities in Scotland, particularly those high on SIMD, tackling climate change takes a backseat to other priorities like entrenched inequality unemployment and poor health and well-being. I'd like to now talk to you about another session from our recent conference where we heard from DTAS members who were working in recognised deprived communities to talk about how they managed to build in climate activity as a secondary objective to other projects that they were delivering. Each of the three organisations I'm going to talk to you about is in receipt of a Scottish Government fund called Pockets and Prospects, which works on the premise of giving community anchor organisations small amounts of money to deliver projects to help increase the prospects for the people within those communities. All of these projects are focused on mitigating the effects of welfare reform. Now, I'll share a link to a copy of this recording for anybody that's interested, but it was really quite humbling to hear just how far that each of these organisations have been able to go with a relatively small contribution towards their communities. So first off, we heard from Jackie at Greener Kirkcaldy, who talked about group cooking sessions to support people to learn not just how to cook, but to work with different ingredients, a lot of which were grown from the community garden, which helped to minimise and, if not eradicate, food waste. Jackie gave a really good example of a particularly large batch of courgettes that Greener Kirkcaldy had managed to harvest, and they were going to go to waste, so they were used to make soup and all sorts of interesting dishes to support the community. And they are all delivered from Greener Kirkcaldy's community hub, which has a fantastic group kitchen and cooking facility, and they deliver all sorts of projects like cooking on a budget and bringing people together and supporting families to cook meals together. We then heard from Tim at Woodlands Community Development Trust in Glasgow, who talked about the neighbourhood food service, which supported people to access a hot meal at a price that they could afford, often delivered to their doors by volunteers, which helped tackle things like isolation and loneliness. In the same vein, the Outdoor Cafe provided a COVID-safe environment for people to come together, eat good food, and find out more about the services and the opportunities that Woodlands had on offer. The Outdoor Cafe also offered people the chance to learn more about where the ingredients for the meals that they were eating came from. Finally, we heard from Alan at Clearbuckhaven and Methil in Fife, who talked to us about tackling the industrial decline and dereliction in the town through the planting of orchards and community gardens and growing spaces, which provided volunteering and skills development opportunities for local people, whilst at the same time making those towns more attractive for people to spend time. Not to mention, of course, the access to fruit and veg and classes, making homemade jam and chutney. Now, each one of these organisations recognised that looking specifically at climate-related projects was not the top priority for their communities, but instead focused on addressing what that need and priority was, and then working out how that by addressing that need, they could then introduce people to the money, time and climate saving opportunities that they have. And like I said, I'm going to put a link to the YouTube video recording of that session into the chat, and anybody that's interested can take a look. So I think that's enough from me for the time being. I'd now like to hand over to the lovely Alex Wilson from People's Community Trust, and Alex is going to tell you a bit about People's Community Trust journey in building community capacity around net zero. And if you bear with me, Alex, I'll just get my screen share up so that I can show my slides. I'm a Zoom girl, you see, so Teams knocks me for 6 every time I use it.
Just
Okay, that should be you.
Oh, is that a picture at the top? No.
That is from Woodlands Community Trust, that one.
Okay, lovely, that's fine. I can't remember if we had any photos, Catherine, did we?
No, we didn't, not in the slides I have.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I should have probably sent them to you. Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Alex Wilson. I am the coordinator for People's Community Trust. My role is entirely about community capacity, and we have been very lucky to increase our membership numbers. We're now around 1,300 members. We're an anchor organisation. We're seen as an enabling organisation in the town, and we support around 15 different projects. Each of these projects works semi-independently. They report back to the board, but they're able to act autonomously and go and get on with the activity that they want to do. It means that the projects are community-led. and we have very good systems in place to engage through social media, through our website, and through a MailChimp newsletter. I sent one out earlier today, and that goes out to 1,000 people. It means you can move really quickly and contact people very quickly, and that's, we find, it means you can respond, be flexible. And during lockdown, we were really able to do that, having been recognised as the body that could support other groups in the town to deliver emergency response during lockdown. I think that was very different to an awful lot of the council bodies who closed down a lot of the local community halls and community assets. We have at PCT, one of the things that we have done is we were lucky enough to secure Scottish Land Fund money to purchase the old ex-servicemen's when it went into administration. And because we owned that building, we were able to open it much more quickly. And so during lockdown, we were able to respond through a project, and we set up the Peebles Reuse Project. And it started in June 2020. The aim of the project was purely to stop landfill. Lots of people during lockdown were throwing things away when shops were closed and landfills were closed, and it was all a bit chaotic. So I think the only people winning were the people that were renting skips, and there were an awful lot of them that were being filled, sadly. And so we were able to set up a Facebook page in June 2020 called Peebles Reuse Hub Peebles, and to take donations from people in the community. And then we have developed this project. We've led it, we've kind of guided it, but in actual fact, it's, as I said to our board, this is a train that you'll have difficulty stopping. It's the buy-in from our community is incredible. I feel that our community is frustrated, probably like most of us, that you see councils very happy to recycle, but reuse isn't part of that. So our project is saying, let's find out what the barriers are, what is the problem, why is this being wasted, and we try to meet meet that gap. So here we are, nearly October 2020. We've raised almost £40,000. All of the money is going towards our building. We have an upgrade in our community asset, the Schoolbrae Hub, and that's going to cost us a lot of money. And the income generated from the sales from the Reuse Hub are filling in for the costs that you can't always get funding for. In the Schoolbrae Hub, we had already identified that we wanted to set up a skills base where you could learn about sewing, basketry, and all sorts of skills. And so whilst things are coming in to the hub, we can see that people are saying, oh, but I can't do this and I can't do that. So there's a really nice match with the skills base. So we're able to engage. We're able to continue to engage with our community as they come in and visit the Reuse Hub. This, when nowhere else was open, was very valuable in the community. And we had people who would come in and say, I know I haven't bought anything, but actually you've made my day. And for people who live in isolation, it's really nice when you come somewhere and you see people who enjoy what they're doing. And we've had people come forward since lockdown saying, I've been stuck at home for a year, I don't want to do that again, and they want to get involved. So we're increasing our volunteer pool to about 20 on just this one project. Because of the organic growth of this project, we can see that that there's a need for people to have access to items. So we are now looking at setting up a library of things. we are hoping to get a little bit of funding towards that. We have applied for funding several times in the past for a project of this type, but we've never managed to achieve it. And that's all power to a community to actually show how far we've got without that funding. So we're looking at what are the barriers for people. Why does stuff end up in landfill? And I think, you know, these can be physical, social and financial. And so we're trying to get around that barrier. And we're also, as things come in, we're saying, well, that would be really good to have in our library of things. So that hopefully will start. We're looking at a sustainable model within that. We don't want funding that then requires more funding and more funding. So the model that we're looking at for the library of things is to go out to our strong membership and also our local community beyond that through all of our different routes of communication, and to invite people to perhaps give us a membership, an annual membership fee. And this would then allow us to create a role, creating a job for somebody to manage the library of things. And that would contain things like wheelchairs, shower seats, walking aids, and things like things that you only need occasional use of. So things like a travel cot. Grandparents who have grandkids to stay might need a Z bed, a high chair. If you want to go camping, I have a tent in my garage. I bought it for my 40th birthday, or I was given it for my 40th birthday. It hasn't been used more than 15 times, and I'm not alone in that. So we have a camping section, so you don't need to go and buy something, you can come and borrow it. So we think the model will work as a membership, and then we also have worked out through running the Reuse Hub that we see so many puzzles, and we've worked out that most of us don't do one puzzle 15 times. So we've gone out to the community who have checked all the puzzles that we've had in. There are many, 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 and we're going to have a puzzle library that stands alongside the library of things. So you'll be able to come along and borrow a puzzle for £1, and then you can have access to at least 100 puzzles, and you don't need to go and buy one. I myself brought in the puzzles from my home, and as I took them off the shelf, I could feel my arms not wanting to let go of them, because we all have this huge personal attachment to things. But actually, when I took them off the shelf, I thought, wow, I have a free shelf, I have more space. And I think the behaviour change takes a long time. I think we're all at a different space a different place on the journey of behaviour change, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a vehicle to support a community who want to make change. And I really feel that this project is supported by our community because it offers that vehicle. I think that creating a job and supporting volunteers to have access to a project that they want to be part of is really valuable. And this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had the capacity to deliver. So if we hadn't had somebody in place, an office for the trust, somewhere for people to pop into, I think this project wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful, not having a community asset to run it from that we could open immediately. And when we started the project, we had literally just the Facebook page and a table outside my office window here, because you couldn't come in the building. So people used to say, I'll buy that, and they would come on a Saturday and in the morning to collect their item, and we were open for 3 hours. One of the first people that bought a saucepan, a frying pan from us, came back and said, you're going to need some help, Alex, I'm volunteering. And he is now one of our lead volunteers. We had to look at how people paid when they collected. So it had to be the exact money, but initially we literally said it was contactless and people came and they used a little machine, and we were able to take a contactless payment from them. So here we are. Who knows where we're going to go in the future? But I think that I think everybody has been surprised at the success of this project, creating nearly £40,000 of income. The first £10,000 we were able to put onto a climate asset fund application, and we raised another 40,000, and we were able to insulate our roof. And we now currently have another funding to go, and another application going in to create a I can hear my alarm going off downstairs, to create a renewable heating system in this building. And it hasn't seen anything, it hasn't been refurbished for a long time. I'm going to ask you all to look at a survey which we have created that we're going out to our community, and it's inviting comment around a library of things. So I hope you'll all support us in completing that, because I think it's interesting to get your feedback. Thank you. Can I ask to go and turn off my alarm? Someone's obviously gone through a fire door downstairs.
I'm just going to share the link to your survey, Alex, as well. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. So we've spoken at length today about silos and the notion that traditionally climate action took place in communities because organisations got climate challenge funding. However, now is the time to rethink. Given the scale of community activity that we've seen, especially over the past 18 months, is it not arguable that climate action is already present in the majority of the projects that our communities are delivering? With that in mind, we'd like you to now reimagine your own community or the community that you support. What are the barriers that you are faced with? And I'm going to try and be really clever again here, so bear with me. And I have a Mentimeter link, which I'm going to share in the chat box, and I'm going to ask you all to have a think about the barriers. If you click on that link, it should open another tab and allow you to then view a Mentimeter. And if I get very clever here and do a screen share, you should be able to see the Mentimeter. And if I come out of that and refresh it, can everybody see that link? Oh, has this absolutely bombed?
Might have. It says
oh,
barriers. Oh,
there we go. There we go. That's a barrier through. So you should all, if you click on the link, it opens another tab, and you should be able to then contribute to the Mentimeter. What I'll do is I'll keep it running after the session finishes, and if anybody wants to contribute to it, they can. And Laura, what I'll do is I'll share with you the final word clouds as PDFs that you can use as part of the conference promotion.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's really interesting, is what's coming through so far is yeah, that's a lot of the barriers that DTAS members would also feed back to us. So having now thought about the barriers, I always like to finish on a positive, and I'd now like you all to think about the positives. So I'm going to do the same again and get a link for positives. So this will take you to a new Mentimeter, and I should hopefully now be able to share the positives. So what can you do? Thinking about the barriers that you've identified, what can you do? What opportunities or actions are available to you individually or the organisations you represent? I love that first one, absolutely. Just realised I'm not sharing my screen, so nobody knows what I'm talking about. Some lovely comments coming in the chat box for you as well, Alex. So make sure you take a look at those.
Okay. Happy to answer any questions as well. I keep thinking of other things. You know, one of the things that we identified was, well, one of the things that we all throw away and we need to find a solution for is fibre-filled duvets. So we're starting a project where we unpick it, wash it, bag it, and put it back out for sale. And so long as we can do that for seating and that sort of thing, then you know there shouldn't be a problem. So we're trying to find solutions.
That's a fab idea. And just as you've been saying that, I'll bring the Mentimeter to a close now, but thank you all very much for embracing that. Sometimes that doesn't work for us, so I'm really glad it did work today, and thank you everybody for that. That now takes me to the end of the us talking to you,